It was day 287 aboard the human merchant vessel Athena, and Captain Williams was itching to get back home. This run from Tau Ceti to Procyon had taken longer than usual thanks to the heavy payload they were hauling. She gazed out the main viewport at the hypnotic swirls off faster than light travel, emanating from the powerful drive core mounted aft of the crew compartments. Approaching Procyon system in T-10 minutes, announced her navigation officer, Lieutenant Sanchez, dropping to sublight speed for deceleration burn. Very well. Take us out of warp, Lieutenant. There was a noticeable shudder throughout the ship as the hyperdrive powered down. The mesmerizing colored streams outside shifted to pinpricks of starlight drifting by. We've got a transmission coming in from Procyon docking control, ma'am. They're requesting our engine efficiency logs and safety margin data. Captain Williams frowned. More bureaucracy and red tape, even out here. Go ahead and transmit it. Several minutes passed as they continued their deceleration. Ma'am, we're being hailed by the PDC safety enforcement vessel Light Hope. They say our safety margins are out of compliance and are ordering us to submit to inspection. Out of compliance, scoffed the captain. By whose standards? The Procyon Interstellar Transportation Authority, ma'am. Williams gestured angrily. Those feathered freaks wouldn't know an efficient warp drive if it landed on their beaks. Our margins are perfectly safe by Earth commercial spacefaring guidelines. Yes, ma'am. Regulations are looser in Earth space, but we're in Procyon jurisdiction now. The captain sighed. I suppose we don't have much choice. Give them permission to come aboard. Inspector Kach's car stalked haughtily around the Athena's cramped engine bay, his iridescent green feathers puffed out in alarm. He tutted disapprovingly at the state of the external power converters before pivoting his avian head to glare at Captain Williams. I must inform you, Captain, that your vessel's engine safety systems are critically under-toleranced by PETA commercial regulations. Williams gritted her teeth. As I told your lackeys already, Inspector, the Athena meets or exceeds all guidance by the Earth commercial spacefaring. Kach cut her off with a squawk and a swift chop of his wing. This is not Earth space. By allowing your fail-safes and emergency buffers to degrade so close to the red line, you are clearly in violation of safety protocol out here. You have less than a 1% safety margin on your warped field emitters. Unacceptable. I hereby order the Athena impounded at Procyon dock until a full independent safety review can be completed. The inspector extended his wings authoritatively, awaiting the captain's reaction. Williams felt her face flush as anger rose inside her. Now you listen here, you pompous chicken. My crew and I have logged over 200,000 hours in warp space. Your damned safety buffers are simply wasted efficiency. Humans have been warp capable for over 300 years, and we still have a perfect safety record. So take your PETA regulations and shove them right up your cloaca. We will be departing immediately for our destination at Procyon Colony. Cake's car's mouth gaped in shock. His avian eyes blinked rapidly as he processed the captain's words. Finally, he stammered out a reply. You cannot simply ignore the lawful authority of my Office of Safety Enforcement. I am well within my rights to impound this clearly unsafe vessel. Captain Williams leaned forward, eyes narrowed. If you wish to obstruct an Earth-flagged merchant ship for no violation, I suggest you prepare your after-action report for the Terran Trade Administration. I wonder who they will side with, a licensed human captain with 30 years experience, or one paranoid bird desperately power-tripping to justify his position. The inspector hesitated, then slowly folded his wings with a scowl. Mark my words, Captain, you have not seen the last of Inspector Kach Carr. When you burn up in warp space due to your brazen flaunting of simple safety measures, I will be more than justified. He turned and stalked out of the engine room, without another word. Welcome back, Athena. Docking clamps secure. Captain Williams sighed in relief as the airlock indicators finally switched to green, showing a firm connection with Procyon transfer station. Through the locks and customs checks, her crew should finally get some shore leave. Except another delegation was approaching down the boarding tube. A squad of avian guards in PETA uniforms, followed closely by a familiar green-feathered inspector she had hoped never to see again. Here are the safety violation penalties you earned from our previous encounter, Captain. Kach Makar sneered, holding out an authenticator wafer. Your ship is to remain impounded until the fines have been paid to satisfy the risk your vessel poses. Rage threatened to erupt from the captain. Before she could loose a tirade of insults, her communications officer called out, "Incoming transmission from the TTA High Commissioner's office." Without waiting for a reply, the hollow screen on the bridge flickered into an image of Gabriel Loon, the human High Commissioner for all Terran Trade Alliance vessels operating in Procyon. His expression was stern. "Captain Williams, what is the meaning of this obstruction? Your shipment of construction materials is urgently needed for Colony Exodus's expansion." The captain straightened. "Commissioner, sorry for the delay, but we are being unlawfully impounded by overzealous safety inspectors from PETA here. These arrogant avians seem to think—" "Are you implying the Imperial Procyon Inspection Bureau is overstepping?" thundered an alien voice from off-camera. A massive creature with navy blue feathers on its forelimbs and golden fur around the head pushed into view. "I am Grand Inspector Shiov-Ruk, head of this Sector Safety Enforcement Council, and I do not take such accusations of harassment against my officers lightly, Commissioner." Commissioner Leon held up his hands diplomatically towards the alien. "I intended no offense, Inspector Shiov-Ruk. I only want to understand the delays holding up this vital shipment." Inspector Kachishkar inserted himself back into the discussion. "Commissioner, we detained this human ship and crew because their engines would not even meet minimum safety requirements for a juvenile suborbital hop on our homeworld. By PETA regulations, they should be scrapped altogether. Surely you can provide transport vessels that do not flaunt basic precautions." Now Captain Williams found her chance to respond. "With respect, Inspector, the only thing we flaunt is that we have more experience with warp technology than your people. Humans traverse warp space with smaller safety margins than most species are comfortable with, but our experience also makes us damn good at it." The Wolfbird hybrid officer bristled angrily. "You arrogant, featherless ape. How many lives is your experience worth when an accident or unexpected solar flare overload occurs? I don't care if your history allows you to play fast and loose back in Sol system. Out here you will conform to established multi-species tolerances." Commissioner Leung held up a hand politely again. "Inspectors, might I propose a solution? You question our tolerances for risk, but cannot deny humanity's expertise. Perhaps we could provide additional advisor support to PETA directly from the TTA. If human experience could bolster your knowledge, future incidents might be avoided altogether." The avian officers glanced at each other, then Shiov-Ruk responded. "A generous offer, Commissioner. We will consult the Imperial Transport Consul's office on whether embed positions from your Terran Trade Alliance may be prudent." The High Commissioner smiled. "Excellent, a promising first step. Now, I believe the good ship Athena has urgent cargo to deliver dirtside." The Grand Inspector ruffled his feathers. "Yes, well, I shall allow it, but only once the prescribed fines have been processed." As the transmission ended, Captain Williams allowed herself a smirk. Another crisis averted by good old human fast-talking. She'd take an undeserved fine over weeks of spaceport impoundment any day. Her smirk faded quickly, though. Whether more humans ended up working with PETA or not, that annoying Inspector Kachishkar still needed repayment for the headaches he'd caused her crew, and she knew just how to inflict it. Inspector Kachishkar strutted through the pristine halls of Imperial Station, Procyon Systems Orbital Inspectorate HQ. He had just filed his reports damning the unsafe human ships that passed through daily. "Let the featherless monkeys play roulette with their lives, if they wish," he shrugged, "but they will not be permitted to endanger proper, law-abiding citizens out here." His ruminations were interrupted by an urgent page over his auditory implants. "Inspector Kachishkar, you are needed immediately in Transit Hub 12. A Terran Trade Alliance vessel has arrived extremely damaged and unstable. Your senior expertise is required." The inspector broke into a loping run down the corridor. Blast those irresponsible humans. He'd known it was only a matter of time before their hubris killed them all. This would sadly prove beyond doubt that stricter enforcement of safety margins was needed. He arrived at Hub 12 to find various PETA officers already establishing a secured perimeter around the docking ring. Through the shimmer of oxygen containment fields, he could make out the melted and blackened hull of a mid-sized transport ship drifting slowly. The running lights still winked erratically as the mangled ship tumbled. As he entered the hub proper, the ranking major waved Cage Bar over urgently. "Inspector, thank the flock you've arrived. We just pulled their captain from an escape pod. She says their warp core went critical after a failed safety valve burst. Their entire crew perished. We've got disaster protocols active, but the wreck could still rupture any minute. Keech Picard felt a chill in his gizzard. He had seen warp core failures before. The energy released by a breached antimatter chamber was beyond catastrophic. Officers begin immediate evacuation of the entire spoke. This whole station could be at risk if that halt goes up. But even as his team scrambled to coordinate, the damaged freighter rotated towards the hub's blast shields, and he spotted familiar markings along its flickering engine column. Athena Tete Reg, number 2139181. No, it cannot be, he whispered. Through the broken viewport, he saw a suited figure waving slowly to attract their attention. Scanning visibly identified a human female, likely the captain, and her face through the helmet sent a bolt of recognition through him. Seconds later, the Athena's rupture alarms began blaring loudly across Hub 12 speakers. But almost as quickly they winked out again, replaced by words Picard never expected from a crippled Terran ship. Gotcha, ya overstuffed peacock. His jaw dropped in dismay and rage as the truth dawned on him. Captain Williams, still safely piloting her intact vessel, had enacted an extremely spiteful prank. Somehow she had spoofed docking registry files, used false ship broadcasts to trick him down here, and mocked him openly through the shielded hatchway. As his subordinates stared silently, Picard let loose a volcanic screech of frustration and outrage. The humans had openly ridiculed Imperial authority and due process. He would see them all banned from Procyon for this insult. But even exiled back to their home system, he realized dimly they would probably still go on hurtling through warped space as dangerously undermargined as ever. Curse those reckless, foolish creatures. As Captain Williams piloted the chuckling Athena out to deliver its cargo, she sighed happily at the thought of that obnoxious PETA inspector finally admitting defeat to old-fashioned human spacefaring ingenuity. Maybe he would think twice about dragging TTA vessels through bureaucratic nonsense again. All right, Mrs. Sanchez, she announced, lay in those minimal margins, and let's see about breaking our turnover record back to Sol. The ship plunged forward smoothly as another successful run commenced, and far behind them, a solitary green feather spun gently in the void of space.